Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Before I invite our speaker up, I just wanted to make some quick announcements. First of all, thank you so much for coming to our first luncheon of the semester. We're excited you're here, and we're excited to get started. I also wanted to let you know that our semesterly workshop is coming up on March 11th, and it's from 6 to 8 p.m. We also had to change the date of our March luncheon, so if anyone has the academic program guide or put it in their calendars, the luncheon will also be on March 11th at noon in this room. So if you have any questions, feel free to email sldc@law.stetson.edu and we'll clear things up. But without further ado, I'm going to invite Claire McQueen up to introduce our speaker.
Hi, everyone. So I'll introduce John Higgins, our speaker today. He joined the Rays organization as its first employee in 1995 when he was named the team's Senior Vice President of Administration and General Counsel. He also served as the organization's Chief Financial Officer from 1999 to 2007 and has continued to have oversight of the team's accounting and finance department. Mr. Higgins has practiced law in the Tampa Bay area for many years, specializing in corporate, commercial, and real estate law. He is also a certified public accountant. In addition to his responsibilities with the Rays, he is of counsel to the Holland & Knight law firm in Tampa. He currently serves as a member of the board of directors of the Rays Baseball Foundation. Mr. Higgins received his Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Notre Dame and his JD from Duke University School of Law. Please join me in welcoming John Higgins.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to come to Stetson and share some things with you. As I read a Tampa Bay Times column one morning 2 weeks ago, as I was reading it, it struck me that the column was a perfect introduction to this speech on management. The column by John Romano of the Tampa Bay Times is entitled, "Ray's Way, Caught Between Love and Hate." And I'd like to start by reading some excerpts from the column. Quote, "Tampa Bay's former vice president of baseball operations was hired as the new general manager in Houston on Monday. And then Tampa Bay's former senior vice president traded Mookie Betts and former Ray David Price to Tampa Bay's other former vice president. That former vice president in Los Angeles also traded Jock Peterson to Tampa Bay's former manager in Anaheim, a trade, by the way, which got rescinded afterwards because of medical issues. And continuing, and Kenda Maeda, he traded Kenda Maeda from the Dodgers to Tampa Bay's former bench coach, who is now managing in Minnesota. There have been other franchises that have lost a goodly number of talented players, but I'm not sure one franchise has ever seen a combination of players, coaches, and executives depart year after year the way Tampa Bay has. But the Rays keep winning. In the last dozen years, Tampa Bay is fifth in the majors in victories," unquote. Continuing, "The four teams with a better winning percentage during those 12 seasons, the Yankees, Dodgers, Cardinals, and Red Sox, are all wealthy, history-laden baseball havens. The Rays have fewer fans, less revenues, and barely a generation's worth of memories. And yet, they've had more playoff appearances than teams spending twice as much money on players. So no, it's not a surprise that other franchises keep looking towards Tampa Bay when it comes time to replenish their roster, staffs, or front offices. What's amazing is that the Rays keep contending. All of their avant-garde thinking has been justified by the industry, and yet it's also come back to bite them in the britches. Losing one exec to Boston in November was bad enough, but losing another to Houston in February is particularly unsettling. Owner Stu Sternberg's prepared statement on James Click's departure to the Astros hinted at the frustration of developing front office talent for a decade or more and then losing people to richer relations without any compensation. 3 of the 5 largest payrolls in the game are now being controlled by former Rays executives. Meanwhile, the current Tampa Bay front office is working with a bottom 5 payroll. So is this a lament or is it praise? It's a little bit of both. Feel free to sound as frustrated as Sternberg when it comes to swallowing baseball's skewed economic realities, but don't ever lose sight that 29 other teams seem to think of Tampa Bay as the Ivy League of baseball minds, unquote. I also would point out that 7 of the 30 on-field managers in Major League Baseball, that's 23%, were members of the Rays front office, the Rays Major League coaching staff within the past 5 years, including 2 who were hired last offseason to take over the Blue Jays and the Twins, as well as Dave Martinez, our former bench coach, who is now wearing a World Series ring because he led the Washington Nationals to the World Series championship last year. So our people are everywhere. From myself, my perspective, other than a year working as a CPA between college and law school, I've only worked in 2 industries in my adult life: baseball for 25 years and the legal profession for 16 years, which from a management perspective, the legal industry is quite atypical in that a law firm is largely a collection of individual profit centers with some support staff rather than the typical vertical management hierarchy. So the only thing that I can talk about from a manager's perspective is about the Rays and baseball. But the Rays is a good organization to study because it has been successful. We'll talk about why it has been successful. But first, let's take a step back. As a place to start, what is management? I know it's something one can major in because when I was at Notre Dame in the business school, I could have majored in either accounting, finance, marketing, or management. I chose accounting. When you Google management, you come up with all kinds of things, but I found one that was particularly interesting from the Oxford Dictionary. Management is the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. From my own perspective, I deal with things and people every waking minute, both at work and at home. And I would submit that dealing with things and people includes dealing with yourself, because you will not be an effective manager of people, an effective leader, unless you have your act together, both personally and professionally. So from my own perspective, I'm going to share a few things about me that may or may not resonate with you. So we're going to start looking inward a bit. First, when I started practicing law almost 41 years ago, the senior partner in what was the tax department, although it did more than tax, gentleman named Jack Boggs, probably the best lawyer I've ever worked with. He had a policy that he returned every phone call he received that day before he went home. Sometime he was there till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, returning phone calls. He may have just gotten voicemail, but he returned the calls. I adopted that practice right away, and now in the day and age of email and text, I've carried over the policy so that I will make sure that before the day is over and I wrap it up for the day, whether it's at work or at home, I return every email that I got that day. I can't tell you how appreciative people are when they receive a quick response, even if it's something that's not particularly important. Around that same time, 41 years ago, I read something in some type of article about being efficient in your personal and professional lives. And the advice was, only touch a piece of paper one time. Somebody hands it to you, you get it in our office, you do something with it. And I've carried that practice over to email. When I read an email, I do something with it. I act on it, and I file it away, I delete it or whatever. You read and act on it. I've carried that practice over to email, and I know many people that will stare at emails, some of them from me, for days, not doing anything with them. They get paralyzed by it. One exception to that rule: if an email makes you angry or upset, and if a response to the email is warranted, take a deep breath, wait till the anger subsides, then write the response, then read it over 2 or 3 times before you send it. In this era of email and texting, 3 thoughts about that. One of the things that I do, it'd be easy for me to sit at my desk and just fire off emails to people, responding to emails, sending fresh emails, but I do a lot of walking the halls. I work with a lot of people that probably are not much older than you. We have a very young staff. And a lot of them are in the business world for the first time. And I view part of my job as a manager, as a leader in the organization, to be a teacher. And sometimes those lessons are taught better face-to-face than me firing off an email that says, you shouldn't have done it that way. It's a little bit of a softer approach. And I think that helps then the ongoing relationship with our staff. The other thing that I do often, probably not often enough, is I try and send handwritten notes or make a phone call rather than just firing off an email, particularly when you're thanking somebody for something. I remember reading that Peyton Manning was famous for writing handwritten notes. Peyton Manning, as great of an athlete as he was, took the time to write somebody a thank you note. That says something. He could have just sent a text message or have somebody in the front office send it for him, but he took the time to write it in his own hand. It shows genuine appreciation for the people that you took the time to do that. And the third thing that I would share with you as future lawyers, and I presume you know this, I presume everyone knows this, but a lot of people forget it. Don't ever send an email that you wouldn't want to answer questions about in a deposition. And I can tell you, I was just talking to Claire, I don't do a lot of litigation, but I've done my share, and some of the things that you will see people write, and it can be tremendously damaging in litigation. So be real careful. And we've seen plenty of examples about it in the 2016 election, the impeachment inquiries, just something. These are smart people. Why would they be so stupid to put that into an email? Because emails just don't go away. Here's a few other suggestions, again, I can only talk about things that I do. Always say thank you. Know people's names. If you're not good at names, there's memory aids you can use to remember people's names. I try and know everyone's names in the office, including the interns, and we usually have about 20 new interns every year, and it's a chore. Thankfully, they all have their names next to their carols, so I can try that as a memory aid. The other thing that I do is I walk the halls. Well, I have a truly, I think, an open door policy because a lot of people use it. If you, as a manager of people, whether that's within a law firm, whether that's in-house as a general counsel, or just some other line of business, have that open door policy. You want the people that work for you to be able to come in to discuss an issue and a problem. Conversely, you can be friendly, but you can't be their friend. You're their boss, you're not their friend. I'll give you an example. In our organization, it's very employee-centric. We do a lot of organizational team building events. We had one in the summer in August out at St. Pete Beach. A lot of fun and games. A few beverages, get drunk, some good food and whatever. I choose not to attend those events, and I do it for the very reason that I might be called upon to have to dismiss somebody that 2 months before I was sharing a beer with, which can make it awkward and the like. Same way, I don't hang around the clubhouse. If there's a reason for me to be in the clubhouse, I'll go to the clubhouse. But I don't hang around because next year I may be in an arbitration hearing against one of the players, and I can't be their friends. I can be their colleague and the like. The other piece of advice that is very important to me is at all times be ethical and professional. As lawyers, you're going to be faced with difficult people, really difficult people on the other side of a negotiation or litigation. There will be hard-nosed and contentious situations, but don't make it personal and don't cross that line. And there is a line, and you'll know it when you see it if you're good at what you do. And I think I can say this. I've thought about it many times. I don't think in my 40-plus years of practicing law I've ever crossed that line to the point where I need to be looking over my shoulder at somebody that I wronged in a situation like that. Life's too short, quite frankly, after you've practiced law for a while. I mean, I used to be full of all kinds of energy and vigor and BS and the like, and I was hard-nosed and I realized after a while, life is too short and the like. Lastly, know your strengths and your weaknesses. That will pay dividends if you know those things as managers and also as lawyers. A year or so ago, our organization started having regular sessions of our management team with a leadership training consultant from Eckerd College. And in one of the exercise, you answered various questions, answer this on a scale of 1 to 5, whatever. And then they slice and dice that stuff. And I measured very high scores in certain categories, such as self-confidence, self-awareness, risk acceptance, which is a willingness to pursue an idea even when the probability of success was low. But I measured very low scores in a few areas, including a preference for little formal structure, meaning I need structure. I can't be in one of these, these think tank where you sit around and just, shoot the breeze or whatever. I need structure in order to do my job. I'm independent, which can be a good thing, but can be a bad thing in a team situation, and that I'm more introverted than extroverted, which can, and I did not disagree with that. I've known that all my life, but that can also create some challenges. But some of those things were eye-opening to me, and I've become cognizant of those, and it's helped me shape the way I approach things, people, situations as managers. As a leader, you're going to be faced with managing many situations. One of the things that I try not to do, and as an attorney inside a business organization, it's easy to fall victim to it, and I've seen people do fall victim to it. Don't be that person whose easy answer, whose default answer is no. Your job as a manager and as a lawyer is to try to assist your staff and your clients in making things happen if you can. We recently had a situation in the office where our baseball operations department wanted to provide a product to our major league players, which the people thought the players would really appreciate and would do a lot of good. And I'm always looking to make life for our major league players better, and anything I could do. I was presented with this, but I was cognizant that what they were wanting to do could potentially upset one of our major sponsors. I was pretty aware of what the sponsorship agreement said, but I went back and checked it. It would not have been a default under the partnership agreement or under the sponsorship agreement, because if it was going to be a default, no, you can't do that. You have to say no. But it was one of those situations where it's not a breach of the agreement, but the sponsor could have felt that it was not doing it with the major league players would not be within the spirit of the agreement. So I met independently with both departments, the corporate partnership department, baseball operations. Then I brought them all together, and we started brainstorming a little bit. And finally, an add-on inside the Major League clubhouse I proposed, which everybody was fine with the add-on inside the clubhouse. And because of that, that would make the sponsor happy and the like. And so it became a win-win situation for everybody. That's kind of your job. It would have been very easy for me to just say, no, we're not going to do that. Here's another idea that somebody introduced to me a number of years ago. In fact, I mentioned it to the head of our baseball operations department at the time, and he started using it. If you're managing a team, have the member, and there's a particular issue that's going to be discussed at an upcoming meeting, have the members write out their thoughts on the subject, their opinions. Write them down, present them to you in advance. So they're on the record of what that is, what that's going to do. And you've all been in these meetings. Somebody gauges which way the wind is blowing and they jump on that bandwagon. Or they hear what the leader says and they say what they know the leader wants to hear in that. Doing that in advance, it cuts out all of that. Think about this from a perspective of baseball operations. A trade proposal's been presented. We're going to trade one of our star players and the like, and we're going to get back these young prospects. The baseball operations head asks his people, tell me what you think about this trade. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we change it? Et cetera, et cetera. That's an invaluable tool as opposed to getting in the room, hearing the largest voice in the room saying, oh yeah, we've got to do this trade, and everybody jumps on board and the like. The last piece of personal information I'm going to pass along is the importance as a manager and as a leader of an organization of creating a climate of trust. In our organization, if I'm presented with a proposed agreement or undertaking that I feel is somewhat out of the ordinary, I normally will ask the person submitting it to me to review if one of our team presidents has approved the particular elements of the agreement that are, out of the ordinary or controversial. It makes everyone's life a lot easier if I can trust these people that are bringing something to me to say, yes, Matt signed off on it. I don't have to go and run to Matt. I've been in situations, not at the Rays, but in law firms in the past where you didn't have that element of trust. I was in a law firm, in fact, the last law firm before I joined the Rays, and it blew apart because the founders of the law firm started fighting over money. Nobody trusted anybody in that place, and you talk about a horrible situation. So it's good to create that climate of trust. So let's spend the rest of our time focusing on the Tampa Bay Rays and what has led to the Rays' success. Since Stuart Sternberg assumed ownership of the Rays in October 2005, the Rays have become very employee-focused. This fact can be seen clearly in an email sent to all Rays employees in April of 2008 by our team president. And let me put 2008 April in perspective. 2008 was going to be the 11th season that the Rays were playing Major League Baseball. In the first 10 seasons of the team, then known as the Devil Rays, won less than 40% of its games. Its best season in 2004 was it won 70 games and lost 91. That's a lot of losing over 10 years, I can tell you, and I lived every loss. I took every loss to heart. But that season, 2008, the Rays shocked the baseball world, winning 97 games, the AL East Championship, and then the AL Conference Championship in the playoffs, beating the Red Sox and advancing to the World Series, where unfortunately the Philadelphia Phillies ended the dream, but we're in the World Series, and I still have a World Series ring at home. The team's president's email demonstrates the status of the organization at the time. Remember, it had been 10 years of dismal on-field play. The Rays are dedicated to two goals, the email says. One, building a special organization for all stakeholders, our owners, our staff, our players, our fans, our partners, and our community. And second, increasing the value, strength, and sustainability of the organization. Specifically, we will empower our employees to positively affect the following: our reputation and brand equity, our regional reach and interest level, our impact in the community, our bottom line, and our on-field success. So he was establishing these goals for all the employees, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Now, fast forward 11 years. Excuse me one second. This is a portion of an email to all Rays employees on opening day last year from our team president. Today is opening day 2019. Thanks to our individual and collective efforts. Now remember, this is to the employees. It's opening day. The front office staff, thanks to our individual and collective efforts, the 2019 Rays season is full of promise and potential both on and off the field. It has been an exhausting and intense off season, but it has been worth it. Today and throughout the season, we get to show off what our organization can do. We will make memories for families. We will facilitate lifelong friendships. We will spread all the good the game of baseball can create. We will energize our mission statement. We will energize our community through the magic of Rays baseball. It is our mission. It is the reason we come to work each day, regardless of what specific job function we may perform, whether it's painting or accounting or cleaning or marketing or selling or playing. We all come together around that mission, and we win a lot. As we ask each opening day, please find a moment today for yourself. Reflect on your contributions to the organization, on all that you personally did to help us reach today. What we accomplish together each and every season is inspiring. Thank you for all you do to make our organization unique and special. Thank you for choosing to be a part of us. Our employees truly appreciate receiving messages such as this one. It makes each and every employee feel special that he and she are an important contributor to the team's on-field success and the organization's standing in the community as a good corporate citizen. Another opening day email to all employees provides a key insight into one of the primary reasons for our success. 2013, opening day. Happy opening day. Quote, I'll remind you that Stu Sternberg, the owner of the team, continues to push us to, quote, break some windows, unquote, to try new things, to never be satisfied with the status quo. Our best ideas, our finest innovations come from every corner of the organization. And then he goes on to talk about some of our ideas. For example, one of our mascots, DJ Kitty, it came from one of the employees had a stray cat that he used to bring into the office. We turned it into DJ Kitty. Speaking of breaking some windows, I'm not a big fan of self-help books, but one I have read and would urge you to do the same. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's published in 2011 by Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Science laureate Daniel Kahneman. Really interesting book. In the book, two propositions in the book that I thought were really interesting, particularly from the standpoint of management. There's all kinds of great stuff in there. In the book, the author opines that people basically are loss adverse. They are more likely to act to avert a loss than to achieve a gain. And he gives an example. Now, listen to this one. Most people reject the following gamble. You will have a 50% chance to lose $100 and a 50% chance to win $200. In other words, you flip a coin, heads, you lose $100, and tails, you win $200. You know, I remember taking probability and statistics in college. That would tell you you should take the bet, but most people don't take that bet because they're loss averse. They reject the notion because they're concerned about the possible loss and don't focus on the potential to win, the upside. They're focusing on the downside. I urge you to be bold, unless, of course, it's your last $100 to pay your tuition. Another example from the book, which is really also really interesting, is the value people place on a change in probability, e.g. of winning something. It depends on the reference point. People appear to place a greater value on a change from 0% to 10%, i.e. going from impossibility to possibility, than from, say, 45% to 50%, and they place much greater value on going from 90% to 100%, going from possibility to certainty. This occurs despite the fact that utility theory should say they should all be the same, but people don't think that way. They're worried about the loss of that. And why is that important? That's what we're going to be talking about in the next 10 minutes or so I've got, Claire. The RAISE organization is very goal-oriented. A common mantra, and I've heard our owner use it, is, quote, under-promise and over-deliver, unquote. Let me share with you some goal perspectives. From a January 3, 2017 email from one senior executive to the other senior executive, setting forth the goals for the next 2 months in the lead up to the start of the season. Meet with each department at least once, have a face-to-face interaction with every staff member. Sign up for one RAISE community relations project, and we do a lot of community relations projects. Observe proper email etiquette, observe proper meeting etiquette, be on time, use an agenda, clean up my personal office space, send 5 thank you notes. This is a senior executive. He's getting down and taking care of the small details, because if you take care of the small details, the big details will take care of themselves along the way. These were my own goals at the same time. We're going to do that. Meet face-to-face with each vice president at least once every 2 weeks to discuss ways I can be of assistance, issues, concerns, et cetera, et cetera. Be on time for all meetings. I'm not great at being on time for all meetings. Claire, I was here 15 minutes early today. Have same-day turnaround on all projects, document preparation or review. That was the goal. A number of years ago, we had a consultant do an assessment of our senior management. Here was one executive's goals after the assessment. Deeper engagement with staff members throughout the organization, stronger communication and coordination with VP level executives, provide more recognition and praise, provide more feedback, including criticism where needed, proactive addressing and resolving conflict. So again, he's not focusing on these big goals. You know, we're going to win the World Series, we're going to have 2 million of attendance. He's down in the weeds. I've given you a look inside the RAISE organization and its management. Let's conclude with a commentary from 3 authors who have written about RAISE management and the reasons for the organization's success. The first author is a very well-known sports columnist with the New York Times, Tyler Kepner. In October 2018 article called "As Baseball Fills Leadership Jobs, Everyone Loves the Rays," he writes the following. He's quoting Stan Kasten, the Dodgers president and chief executive. Quote, "They," meaning the Rays, "focus very much on discipline and analysis, and that tends to cultivate people who are not from the mainstream, people who are really observing what's going on that other, more conventional people might not think about." Quote, Kasten again, "I think with everyone there is a perception that they have a skill set or experiences that may be different from other teams. So it doesn't surprise me that they have probably an above average rate of graduation into higher jobs," unquote. Kasten hired my friend Andrew Friedman away from the Rays 5 years ago. He was our head of baseball operations and made him the president of baseball operations. The Dodgers continued winning the National League West and claiming the last 3 National League pennants, I believe. Kasten also says, when we decided to make a change, meaning the Dodgers were going to bring in new leadership in baseball, there was a lot of things we needed to do that were different. And analytics is a very, very shorthand way of describing it. It's just more analysis, more science, more deep diving into all kinds of things to get the 1%, 2%, 3% edge where you could find something. Next, from Strategic Finance Magazine, a July 2019 article entitled "Winning on a Tight Budget." Quote, "Strong leadership doesn't involve curveballs. As baseball's Tampa Bay Rays have demonstrated, a slow and steady route to success starts with key personnel who demonstrate a commitment to proven leadership principles. While the top management in Tampa has changed over the years, and it does in most organizations, even the most successful ones, the Rays have remained focused on the following 4 concepts: maximizing available resources, adopting evidence-based decision-making, encouraging creativity and innovation, and building a strong team culture by fostering trust and a positive work environment." As Jim Collins described in his now classic business book, Good to Great, organizations that make the successful transition to a true team dynamic focus first and foremost on getting the right people on the bus. These folks are disciplined and self-motivated. The Rays are recognized as being one of the most innovative teams in baseball. They aren't afraid to take informed risks and defy tradition. Many of the team's innovative strategies have been so successful that other teams have subsequently adopted them. 2 come to mind. A number of years ago, we started shifting players around their conventional positions on the field. If there's a strong right-handed pull hitter, you're going to move the second baseman over on the other side of second base, and you're going to have 3 people on the infield, shifting in the outfield or whatever. People thought we were nuts. Now everybody does it. Second thing, in 2018, we took a guy who was called a closer, the guy who finishes off the game, and we said, let's have him start the game instead. He'll go for the first inning or 2 innings, and then we'll bring a bulk guy in. They still haven't come up with a name for that bulk guy. But he's usually a typical starting pitcher, but doesn't have quite the skill set to be a full-time starter. And then that guy is supposed to go as long as you have, and then you turn it over to the bullpen, assuming you're turn over the bullpen, winning or losing, but hopefully you're winning. And people just criticized us all over the place for we were changing the game of baseball in not a good way. Well, it worked, and now everybody does it and the like. So we weren't afraid to take those chances. We could have fallen on our faces in a large way, but we weren't afraid to take the chance, and that's how things work out for the good. Quote, "The lesson for leaders here is that risk and opportunity are soulmates. It's important to be willing to take calculated risks and learn and grow from mistakes." Finally, and I know, Claire, we're getting short of time, I've got one last article, some excerpts from a Q&A interview of Jonah Carey, a sports and stock market writer, interesting combination. In 2011, he published a book about the Rays' success in 2008, comparing the early years with 2008 and beyond, and it's called The Extra 2%, How Wall Street Strategies Took a Major League Team from Worst to First. The moderator asks, "Jonah, in essence, your book, as I see it, is a great case study of management leading a turnaround in a really tough business environment. How did they do it?" The author, the easiest way to say it is that they beat the competition by 2% in everything they do. On the field, they think about tactics, but off the field, they have approaches as well. So you're talking about marketing and talking about stadium ops and all those things behind the scenes. They find a way to combine the two aspects. The moderator. Let's talk a little bit more about the decision-making process. You know, one of the big factors, and it's freakish, you're right that they're extremely disciplined. There are two things to me. Number one is that they're process-oriented, not results-oriented. So it's difficult to do, not just in business, but in life. How they think, it's that if something terrible happens to them, sure, they'll evaluate the process, but assuming that everything is correct, at least on paper, they're going to say more times than not, it works out. Let's keep going in that direction. It takes incredible discipline to do that, to just be able to shake things off, again, in business or life, focus on the process over results. And you form a chain that's strong throughout when you've got qualified people doing it throughout. It's exactly how the Tampa Bay Rays run. Stu Sternberg, quoting the author, Stu Sternberg and Matt Silverman understand everyone is pushing towards the same goal. You're all trying to do the same thing. Let's find people who fit with what we're trying to do. There are other people that are intelligent within baseball, but they do things a little differently. They may not be Tampa Bay Rays material, but they might be Yankees or Astros material. To conclude, it's important to know yourself, your strengths, your limitations. Don't be afraid to try things. A lot may not work out, but those that do can have a major impact. I'm sure you have heard that we have been searching for quite some time for a solution to our stadium situation, our attendance issues. For the past 6 months or so, we have been working on a novel concept that we call Sister City. Under the Sister City plan, the Rays would play home games in a new stadium here in Tampa Bay in the first 3 months of the season, April, May, June. And then the team and staff would relocate to Montreal and play its home games in a new stadium in Montreal in the months of July through September. In the words of Stu Sternberg, that's really breaking some windows. Nothing like that has ever been done. And that could be the topic of a large-scale seminar. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on any subject. Doesn't have to be about management, can be about anything, on-field, off-field, whatever. And Claire, I'll let you pull the plug on when the questions stop. Anybody? Don't be shy. You're law students. Yes, sir.
So, you had mentioned that the first 10 years, the culture was a little different. They were focusing on great success. And then at the time that email went out to start the 11th season, there had been a change in the mission statement of the culture. What did it take to go from that to be words to a culture within?
A great question. It was a massive undertaking. The one good thing, even though the culture the first 10 years wasn't bad, we had really good people. And the on-field success didn't show it. The owner at the time, who was my friend, my client, he wasn't a good owner. And so there was a solid base. But the new people that came in made massive changes as far as in the leadership, hired some new executives, but they weren't afraid to try things right at the get-go. They started, our motto was under construction, and we were basically under construction. We were going to build a brand new organization. One thing I did not mention, it was in my notes, and I skipped over it because of time. When Matt Silverman became team president in October of 2005, Matt Silverman was 27 years old. Andrew Friedman had been working in the baseball operations department for a year. They both had been on Wall Street, had been working at our place for a year. Andrew Friedman was put in charge of baseball operations. He was 28. These were, Matt Silverman became my boss at age 27. I was, twice his age. They weren't afraid Stu Sternberg wasn't afraid because he knew they were good people and they did a hell of a job. Next question. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. What? What, me? Nobody's made me a better offer. No, I love my job. I'm a St. Pete kid. I moved here in third grade, about probably a mile and a half from here. So I'm a St. Pete guy. I really like my job. I like the people I work. Have I had opportunities? Yeah. I've never interviewed for a job elsewhere, but I couldn't find anything that much better. I really like what I grew up, again, on the baseball fields of St. Petersburg. I'm a baseball nut. So it's a perfect job for me. Plus, I work with really good people in a great town. Yes, ma'am.
As law students, we're going to be applying for jobs soon. For those of us who it's really important to look for a corporate culture like that you're describing, how do we, during interviews, sort of learn more about companies' corporate culture?
You need to be prepared to ask the question. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. I hired, when we started the organization, I myself and the head of baseball operations, we interviewed every person that we hired in the first 2 or 3 years. What's impressed me is the people who don't approach an interview as a one-way street. I want hard questions. I want to be challenged and the like, and so don't be afraid to do that. Somebody might think you're being too pushy. You'll be able to read that person, I think, accordingly, but you need to be prepared. Tell me about your culture. If I come here, am I going to like it? What's it going to be like, and that kind of thing. And if you know people that work there, get them off the record and ask them what it's like. And I know my son was interviewing or looking for a job a couple years ago, and there's all kinds of stuff about companies on the websites as far as the culture or whatever, so, do that research. Do I have time for one more? One more. Seeing none? I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to be here, and good luck with everything.